Hello everyone, my name is Amos Nimas, and this is a quick video to talk about something that I'm working on, and not just something I'm working on, but the process of making something. I'm trying to make a game and also a game engine kind of at the same time, and C, and I'm also trying to do it in C++ kind of at the same time, and I'm doing this on Linux without an IDE, so it's a big challenge, to say the least. So documentation is key. I need to have access to good documentation. I think that C would be a better choice to do this, even though it is more limited when it comes to making like large scale game. I think that since my game engine is mainly focused on 2D game, and I mean the idea of it is to basically take the same code and change what like the title of the game and stuff like that in the code without like fancy GUI and stuff like that. I think that C could probably do the job. That's why I'm trying to learn SFML for C. And why SFML? Because I already started learning SFML for C++ and learning C++ at the same time. And now I'm learning C and learning CSFML at the same time. So it makes a little bit of sense. But again, when I look for documentation on like CSFML, and I type CSFML documentation on Google, there's not really good documentation, and I mean it's very hard to find good explanation for what you should use instead of the C++ SFML version. So when you're using the CSFML, things are different because the language is different, but there's not really a good documentation that explains all those differences. And I think that would be useful to have so that you can easily convert your code from C++ to C when it comes to making SFML project. But there ain't, and you have some basic template. Like I think that's all you're gonna get, like the basic bindings, and I mean you can go on the GitHub page if you want maybe a little bit more. Like if you look for documentation, and you got some documentation in here like header.html. No, I'm not even sure. I just want to get like the info on how I use CSFML, and I'm not even on the I'm on the CSFML GitHub page. That's what I was looking for. But here we have the SFML logo, so they didn't even bother like remaking the logo for the page, for the GitHub page, like just adding a C in front of it to make it clear that this is for the CSFML library, even if it's just under it. I mean, make it clearer. Make it clear that this is something different and that you can use. And I don't think CSFML is that widely used, and I don't think you can find like a lot of tutorial. If you go on YouTube and you look for documentation, you ain't gonna find it. So how are you supposed to start your project? People are just gonna give up and not start a project in CSFML if there is no documentation on how to use CSFML. So for example, CSFML tutorial, and let's code. That might be interesting. I haven't watched this video, but other than this video on front, which was made 1 year ago, you pretty much have nothing on YouTube. And like, is it a good video? I don't know. I'm not gonna watch it. It's 1 hour 16, so it probably go over a lot of stuff. And the way I see it, CSFML is very niche. And that's a problem because SFML itself is considered more niche than SDL. And SDL documentation is also like, you have the SDL wiki, which sound kind of good, source code. Like I haven't looked into SDL that much, but because I'm focusing on SFML. But when you go for libs SDL, you got the page, and I mean you have to do some digging to just get a simple tutorial from A to Z how to make project. with SDL. I feel like SDL tutorial. There you go. And then you look like 2D game tutorial, and that might be an interesting tutorial. I don't even know where I am anymore. Like this refers me to another page. Shoot 'em up. That's interesting. It's in 15 steps, and is it object oriented? I don't know. Like that's how you open the window. That sounds like a good documentation. I'm just gonna save it into my CPP documentation, and yeah. Like you see, I'm new to this. I'm not claiming to be an expert. That's how I do my research. I have like another window open on the side. I have my code, and I look at it a little bit. And that the conclusion of this video will be, I am still going to try to use CSFML. And what's interesting is that I think CSFML was kind of coded in C because it used CPP and its file and its source code. So that's very interesting that CSFML is built with C++ in it. That's very interesting. I don't know if they could have done it otherwise. That's weird to use some C++ code in the library that you use to code in C. I don't know if that was necessary. I don't know about that. That's a weird thing. If you got more information on that, tell me in the comment, because I don't really understand that there's C++ in the CSFL library, and that's funny the way that they sorted the library's file folder directory. It just says SFML instead of CSFML. I mean, and that's confusing. Are they different? Are they the same? They're different, then they should probably have different name. They do. One is called CSFML, but they don't use that name when you include the graphics library, the view library. And this is the view CCP code, CPP, sorry. This is the view CPP code for the CSFML library that you can find on GitHub. And that's basically how you're gonna learn what are the functions that you have access to, how they're named, what argument they take, and what they returned. And you can see that like the SF view destroy, that's important. I think they should make it clear that like if you're gonna create an SF view with CSFML, you need to execute the SF view destroy. Am I doing that? Yes, I am. I think clean up. Yeah, you have like all my destroy right here. But the point is, you're not looking at documentation. This ain't beginner friendly. This is kind of like, you might say that people who try to code with SFML and C are good enough. They can look at the source code. They don't need documentation. But there's a difference between needing something and wanting something. I want to have access to good documentation because it will save me time. I won't have to search through the source code. I think that even though it's something good that people should do, looking into the source code of the library they use, and they could even just copy paste some part of it in their project depending on license and all that. But what I mean is that it's a good understanding of how the library tick. But it's not documentation, and it won't make up for a lack of documentation. So, am I gonna write a documentation for CSFML? No. Am I gonna create my own branch, my own version of CSFML, trying to fix these issues? No, I am not going to do that. So I am just complaining at something that I don't intend to fix. This is just a rant complaining about the fact that there's a big, huge lack of documentation for CSFML, and this makes me question the library. Can I really take it seriously? Can I really use it how I intend to? Am I wasting my time on this thing? Maybe it's just like a quick patch that they, not a patch, but something they made up without thinking too much about it, but that doesn't really have any good usage. Maybe nobody really used CSFML. I don't know. what game were made with CSFML? I bet I won't have an answer to that. Game were made with CSFML list. Like, will I find, like, they tell me what game were made with SFML, but I was looking for a game made with CSFML, so there's not much people using it, which makes me the exception, which makes me the guy who has to go in the source code to look at how am I supposed to use this. And I am new to C++, and I am new to C, so it's complicated to wrap my brain around all these concepts at the same time as I have to unpack the source code of a library that I have to learn. Like, it's a lot of stuff, and I don't suggest you do that. Honestly, if you can take a shortcut, go for it. If you can, like, make your project in C++, go for it. Why am I using C? Mainly for the main what people like about C is the same thing that people like about Pico 8. The limitation. C is very limited, and that can be a good thing. That makes it simpler. C++ is used for so many things. It has become a little bit, I'm gonna say it, C++ has become bloated. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that you should avoid having bloated programming language. Like, for example, Boolean. When you create a Boolean with the bool type, you don't have that in C. And I had to learn this, that we don't have that. Do you know what I'm using instead? I'm using integer. Are integer larger in size on your system than Boolean? Yeah, they are. Are they that much larger that you would care about the fact that your integer are larger? Not really. I don't think so. I mean, we have so many memory nowadays. We have access to powerful machine that can store a lot of data. I don't think you really care about the difference between an integer and a boolean in your code. You don't. So that's why I'm trying to do my game in C instead of CPP. That's pretty much the main reason. Also, I do like having most of my program in a single file. I'm trying to make things simpler, and I'm not sure if I am going to stick with C and CSFML. Maybe I'm going to do all my stuff with C++. There's good reasons, like, to do stuff with C++. But again, the way SFML is configured, the way you have to load textures basically and the main the main function, I mean, there's ways to, like, manage your resource differently than that, but what I realized is that it's just simpler, very much simpler, to just load the windows, like the SF render window, and the view, and the textures, the sprites, the fonts, the text, the music, the event, to just load all of this, and the int main function. And why should you declare all of this and the main function of your code? Simply because the way memory allocation and all that works, the scope of variable would force you to use a lot of dynamically allocated memory. And I don't like that. And we already know that just by declaring like a window or a SF render window, we use some dynamically allocated memory because we have SF destroy for each of these. So it's kind of doing the same thing I was trying to avoid by using C. But again, that's why both are option I am considering. And one advantage of SFML is that at least I have some tutorial videos that I can watch on YouTube, uh, which I don't have in the case of CSFML. There's way less content, way less documentation. And I am not going to start a series documenting all of this. I am not taking this into my own hands. So if you have the time and if you care to do it, go ahead, go for it. Maybe you have a reason why we don't have documentation for CSFML, but I think you're wrong, no matter what your explanation might be. Unless there is good documentation somewhere and I just don't know about it, then sorry, I'm the one who didn't know about it, my bad. But as far as I can see right now, there isn't good complete documentation for these libraries, for that library at least. Just SFML for C++ has better documentation than CSFML, of course. And you cannot use that documentation for CSFML, which would require CSFML to have its own documentation. Now I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to end this video right here, right now, because it's gonna get way too long and I go way too much into the details and all that you probably don't care about. The visual that I'm showing right now, I just like the same thing for a while, so it's just my voice, nothing changed on the display. But yeah, if you care to see the source code for CSFML, you can go on GitHub and I have a little bit of a reading, and I am still trying to compile this code, but I'm having some issues. But as you can see, not that much. It's about to compile. If I just keep working at the small bugs, like this bug right here, is quite easy to fix. That's what I was working on. So if I look for get size, next, right here, that's our bug. So what I need to do is go with view get size instead, and I paste this instead right here. There you go. And I don't use the view and arrow because this is like a separate function, and inside of it I put my view variable. So that's what I learned today by reading the documentation, quote unquote, the source code for the view CCP file and the graphics library of SFML, aka the CSFML. And you see this folder, this directory should be called CSFML. It makes no sense that it's called just SFML. There are ways to change in every file, like every reference to SFML to CSFML. So there's no reason to have it called SFML. That's just confusing because it isn't SFML. This is something different. But I think they just copy paste the code of SFML. That's why it's in CPP. That's why it's in C++, which makes no sense, which is something I don't like, but I get it. I mean, they made something and they didn't want to recreate it from scratch, which is, I guess, a reflex that a lot of programmers would have had, since that's what we do. We don't recreate stuff from scratch, we make stuff modular. And as long as it works, at the end of the day, most people won't complain. But this is me complaining about it because, yeah, I just had to complain about it.